Hi, this is Pastor Steve with an encouraging word. If you notice in the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis, the man and woman are placed in a garden, the Garden of Eden, where they may eat of every fruit and plant and tree that there is. Well, except for one tree, and well, we know what they did, but that's another story. You turn the pages to the very end of the Bible, the last book, the book of Revelation, and there we read of a great marriage supper, the marriage supper of the Lamb, a feast and celebration of God's people, the redeemed. Throughout the pages of the Bible, throughout the stories of the Bible, there are feasts and celebrations that take place around food. Most of Israel's festivals included a meal, a feast of celebration. We know that when Jesus came upon this earth, walked among us, he enjoyed eating, he enjoyed drinking, enjoying all of God's creation that had been made to be tasted and savored through the meals he shared. Many of his teachings took place around a table and a meal. And of course, his last time together with his disciples before the crucifixion was a meal in the upper room, the Passover meal. This week we're talking about becoming more aware of God's presence. And one of the ways we can do that is, again, through things we do every day, the normal rhythms of life. And today I'd like to talk about eating. You may wonder what eating has to do with awareness of God's presence. Well, let me read to you from Psalm 34, verse 8. "O taste and see that the Lord is good. O taste and see that the Lord is good." It is through eating that we can experience something of God's presence, at least gratitude for what he's provided for us. Now, food doesn't have to taste so wonderful, but it does. A bowl of ice cream, fried chicken, hot biscuits. Those are some of my favorites. And yet if I'm thankful for them, if I pause enough to not wolf it down, but just eat the meal and celebrate, offering a word of thanksgiving for the meal and grace, but also being thankful during the meal for the sensations, the flavors, the wonder of how God made not just beautiful colors and so many varieties, but things that taste so good. That is part of God's goodness. And part of being aware of God's presence is celebrating his goodness wherever it appears. Now I realize your breakfast may be quite simple. Your dinner lavish, or again just enough to feed your stomach for the evening. Maybe lunches you skip, or again it's fast food on the go. I'm not saying every meal tastes so great. And certainly during the COVID epidemic, people have lost the taste buds, the sensation of tasting. And certainly during the pandemic, part of the effects have been the loss of taste when people eat their meals. And what a difference it makes when you can't taste the food, when it has no flavor. There's a blandness. There's no celebration. It's just sustenance to keep on living. But because most of us do taste and are alive to the flavors, the spices, the wondrous things that people cook, whether in your home or at a restaurant, there's much to be thankful for. There's a lot to taste and see that God is good in what he's provided for us. So I'm encouraging you this week when you have your meals to pause for a moment, not just to offer a word of blessing, to say grace before the meal, but to offer words of thanks. Maybe as you chew each bite to savor it and say, "This is wonderful. God, thank you for the world you made, for blessing us with wonderful flavors and so many good things to eat." And if you do that, well, Thanksgiving always points to God. And pointing to God is always the way we become more aware of his presence. And that's a good thing to think about and remember this week. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. I don't know about you. I'm getting a little hungry right now. I might get to taste some of God's goodness in a cookie or maybe a banana. Hey, I hope you have a great day. This is an encouraging word from Pastor Steve.